whole communities were made better off when we took measures like capping a highway that cut through a community, or sometimes more modest measures, but they made a difference to help people be better off. There's a project in Orangeburg where I'll be later tonight when I'm addressing the NAACP that I'm looking forward to seeing the progress on. This is not just something that happened in big cities, it happened in small towns, everything in between. And look, the new administration obviously not showing a lot of enthusiasm for this work, but I continue to believe in it, and I think it's made a lot of people better off.
Mr. Secretary, obviously when you show up to South Carolina, it's going to raise eyebrows. You're planning something for the future. In 2020, you got 8.2% in that particular primary, finishing fourth. What do you think you'll be doing to increase your vote share if you get into the presidential race in 2028?
Right now, I'm totally focused on 2026. There are so many important races, many of them right here in South Carolina. This is, I believe, the 33rd state I've been to since leaving the cabinet, and a place where it's so important to show that there's no such thing as a permanently red state, permanently red district. I think some of the candidates we've been working with here are going to surprise a lot of people in November.
Mr. Secretary, you did mention 2020 in there as far as the first in the nation status is concerned. Regardless of your plans, obviously black voters are very important in this primary for the presidential race. What can Democrats do to energize them, to reach out to them, and make sure that they're represented in that process in 2020?
Well, one of the reasons I think that South Carolina's first in the nation status is so important and so significant is it is a response to this Republican project to systematically disempower black voters through gerrymandering, which has happened at a shocking pace in the course of the last year or so. I also think it's very telling that even with a Republican supermajority, there was clearly a hesitation to do that mid-decade redistricting, partly because I think Republicans rightly understood that the black community in this state was going to respond to that. And so I think there's a real opportunity here to show in a place that knows so much how political fairness or unfairness relate to economic outcomes. There's a chance to send a different kind of message about our political process, system, voting rights, and voting fairness.
Secretary, a lot was made obviously about your performance with Wage in South Carolina. I'm wondering if there's something that you feel like you didn't really understand about South Carolina or the South in 2020 that you have a better understanding of now.
Well, certainly being here in 2026, campaigning for Democrats, reminds me of when I was here on other terms in the past. And I think about some things that are the same and a whole lot of things that have changed in the last 7 or 8 years since I was here, mainly as a candidate. I spent a lot of time here asking for something, asking for support. The next few times I visited here was offering something, working with communities where we were delivering funds, where we were delivering support, and getting to know people on different terms. And again, I think what's especially important right now is given what's happening across the South, really, in terms of the political project to manipulate and suppress the vote from the Republican Party, that all of us show a lot of solidarity right now. We don't have to wait for some future cycle for that to happen. 2026 is going to be a big test of our strength.
Secretary, can you talk about that strength going into the midterms? I mean, we just saw President Trump last night in Myrtle Beach. And other Republicans really just labeling all Democrats as socialists and as communists, these labels that people pretty much don't really understand, but sticks in the minds of voters. What do Democrats need to do to send a message that's more unified to combat that kind of messaging?
The good news is all Democrats have to do is remind voters that most of them already agree with us on the big issues and disagree with Republicans. Most Americans, and even in a conservative state like South Carolina, most voters disagree with the Republican agenda to cut taxes for the wealthy, disagree with the Republican tariffs, disagree with the Republican war in Iran, disagree with the Republican cuts to Medicaid and to SNAP, and agree with us on doing more for healthcare, more for education, more to bring prices down. At a moment when most Americans already agree with us on most issues, our job is to make sure we kind of cut through the noise and clear away all of the other stuff that could get in the way of that simple alignment that we have with most voters, even in redder states.
Mr. Secretary, Gavin just mentioned the president was here campaigning for Darlene Graham. You referenced Lindsey Graham during your remarks today. Given that a lot of the political attention around here lately has been focused on candidates as they go head to head, and what do you think all of that could potentially forecast for Annie Andrews' chance here?
Well, I think Annie Andrews has a great opportunity right now to surprise the pundits and to win this state. And I think it's telling that President Trump has to spend more of his energy just propping up his status within the Republican Party, where he's starting to lose a lot of primaries where he's endorsed, rather than a general election message. And again, their general election position is weaker than ever because the economic results have moved in the wrong direction. His promise to accelerate economic growth failed. His promise to bring back manufacturing jobs failed. Prices are higher, mortgage rates are higher, gas is higher. All of those create an opening, I think, for candidates like Annie Andrews to win in territory that was not considered competitive. Remember, a year ago, nobody thought we had any shot at the U.S. Senate. Now it's absolutely neck and neck. We just got to continue driving a message, not just about Republicans' failures, but about how our agenda would make people better off. What I know is that even the best case scenario for the war ending probably puts us worse off than we were before it began, which is why it never should have happened in the first place. Before the war, the president assured us already that the nuclear program was obliterated. Before the war, the Strait of Hormuz was free and open. Now we would be pushing just to have those kinds of outcomes and not necessarily get them. And the fact that the president has backed down and surrendered on his original goal of a unconditional surrender by the Iranian regime, I think tells you just how much he's painted himself into a corner.
When we look at, today was a big conversation about roads and construction in South Carolina. That continues to be a key point of contention in politics today. What are some of the limitations that you may have encountered in trying to invest in states like South Carolina with local governments and general assemblies?
Well, look, it could be a challenge. The reality is we think of things in terms of federal programs and federal dollars, but whether we're talking about highway money or whether we're talking about Medicaid, so much of that actually is decided at the state level. And it's part of why I think it's important to invest in state legislative races that don't get as much attention and glamour, but are critically important. And it's why I found in Washington during my time there that it was very different working with different states. Having said that, when I had my experience in federal service, we didn't treat states differently based on what party they voted for. We were doing hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in projects here in South Carolina, just as much as we were in a state that voted for our administration, because it wasn't about that. It was about the people that we served and making them better off. Meanwhile, you have this administration openly admit that it has canceled funding for energy and other projects just based on how the people in that area voted. That is no way to run the greatest economy and country in the United States. That's got to change.
How do you feel about the way that they have essentially gutted the high-speed rail program in the state of California?
High-speed rail continues to have enormous economic potential, and I think that these ideological efforts to move us backward technologically, whether it's that, whether it's forcing us to use older energy technology, whether it's forcing us to use older vehicle technology, is going to put us at a competitive disadvantage, especially when you have a country like China, which is doing everything they can to dominate the future on solar, on batteries, on EVs, and they're already at a level on high-speed rail that frankly should embarrass a competitive country like the United States that wants to be the best in everything. We have some serious strategic decisions to make, and the window is closing on having America be in the lead.
We have time for 2 more questions.
I think we have a stronger rural message now than we have in a long time, partly because of how Republican rule has betrayed rural communities. Rural hospitals are shutting down or will be because of Republican Medicaid cuts. Rural residents are more likely to be working on a minimum wage that has not been raised since 2009 and has lost a third of its purchasing power. And rural residents are more likely to be the places where the troops who are being sent into this illegal war come from. We need to respond with our own message about how we can get you more money in your pocket, more secure economic life, and build up communities so that you can be hopeful that your kids and grandkids will grow up in the same choose to live in the same community where they grew up. And I say that as somebody who just is convinced that there's no iron law that says that a rural community needs to be left or right. It's about reaching out and talking to them.
Mr. Secretary, I think a lot of us got to know you nationally during the 2020 campaign when you were clean-shaven, 6 years younger. How much have you changed as a public figure during the last 6 to 8 years?
I mean, look, there's definitely more gray in my beard now that I've got one. And a lot has changed for the country and for me. You learn, you grow as you go. When I was first introducing myself here, I was a mayor from Indiana with big ideas about reform and about the future. I still have those big ideas about the future, but I've also experienced from the inside everything that's broken in our system. I spent 4 years trying to build infrastructure across this country. Proud of the things we got done, but also saw for myself how partisanship and red tape and a lot of other huge problems are getting in the way of even the best policy plans and designs. And I just have different relationships now than I did 8 years ago when I was running around trying to get myself known, introducing myself as a total stranger. And it's gratifying to be back in this state with people that I got to know, not just when I was asking for their vote, but when I was teaming up with them to deliver resources here.